Chair report for October 23rd through October 29th. For member birthdays, Mr. Burton Guidry is going to have a birthday on Saturday.
I'm going to collect a check.
No partner birthdays, no member anniversaries. For wedding anniversaries, Sheriff Mike, if anyone sees him around, it is Friday, and it's 7 years with Miss Sonia. Anyone here with guests? Yes. Great.
Happy to have Professor Clint Bruce with St. Anne University in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Anyone else with guests? No? Okay, some things going on around town, or this week will be October 24th. Tomorrow will be World Polio Day. As everyone here knows, we've been painting pinkies for $10, $5 donation. If anybody would like their pinky painted today during the meeting, if you just let me know, I will swing by, paint your pinky, and collect your money. And if you haven't turned your money in already, you can do so today, tomorrow, and you can continue it through tomorrow, because World Polio Day is actually tomorrow. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we will have a board meeting. I'm sure President Robert will speak on that. And then Friday and Saturday, there is a Black Pot Festival. I thought that was pretty interesting. Everything's cooked in black pots, and it's at 300 Fisher Road in Lafayette. Abbeville High School's homecoming, I don't know if everybody here knows, has been moved from the game and the parade being Friday to Thursday because of weather. Morning, that's right. Homecoming dance will still be the Saturday, of course, but Friday, because of the weather, they moved everything to Thursday. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You have a question?
Question 6, the Village Historical Society is having a quarterly meeting at the library, and the speakers will be Dr. Barry Consulate, who's talking Cesar dancing. Apparently with Cajun music. Is that?
Thank you for that.
And everybody can mark their calendar. It's not Valentine's Day, but November 15th and 16th at the Woodlawn Players, just up the bayou, is the Queen's Court of Love will be held. It's a wonderful banquet that will benefit the Vermilion Arts Council. For those of you that aren't aware, the Arts Council each year brings the Acadiana Symphony to St. Mary Magdalene Parish Church in beautiful downtown Abbeville, and the symphony performs. And that's what this fundraiser is going toward, is to help to fund that performance, which usually is very fully attended by the community. And the fact that the Arts Council has persisted says a lot for their Arts Council and their vision for our community. And the other benefit to going to this is $100 a couple. I think it'll be well worth it. And it's the Queen's Court of Love, and yours truly will be performing.
As a queen or as a king?
Any other announcements? All right. Well, I have a few announcements on the club level. I want to thank everyone for showing up Friday morning for the Pool Boy Cook-Off. I've been doing this with you guys for roughly about 7 years now, and I'm always amazed at what we can pull off as a team. It seems like this thing is so well oiled. This year went off without a hitch. Everybody got to pick up their pool boys, no issues there. We had a total income of $8,387, and we netted $5,897 from this pool boy sale. Again, I said this before, but I want to give a special thank you to our President-elect Chris. He's going to be an excellent president for us because he took over this role and never had an issue with it and really knocked it out of the park. So I appreciate it, Chris. Annette said this, and we know this as Rotarians. Tomorrow is World Polio Day. Over the last month, we've been trying to collect donations for the foundation with the Paint the Pinky fundraiser. So I appreciate everybody for turning in their money. This doesn't have to stop. So it doesn't stop until we finish as a Rotary Club internationally. So as of right now, Just a little tidbit, and I'm sure maybe we'll get into a little bit as well. But when we learn a little bit more about the effects of polio, there is only one disease that has ever been eradicated or ever been completely wiped off the planet, and that is smallpox. We are very, very close to having a second one. And when I say very close, right now you have Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan. With the exception of Nigeria, who will be lifted off of the reports this year, because the last case they had was in 2016 in August. So we're down to 2 countries and 82 cases as of 2019. So can you imagine? I think this started in 1985. So shorter than I've been alive. To be able to wipe this out in our lifetime is amazing. So let's keep this push. Like I said, it doesn't have to stop if more people want to get their pinkies painted. I'll tell you that a lot of people were educated through my doors about polio and about the reason we paint pinkies and where we are with the polio efforts. So please continue to do that. If you didn't turn in your money today, you can still, if you want to be billed, just give me a list and amount that you want to be billed for, and we can take care of that. But I need to know that. The reason we put a deadline is because I want to give a donation to the foundation right now. So the money we collected tomorrow, we can send over our money to the district for the foundation, but we can continue to do this as we go. Our next big fundraiser and fun event is coming up November 9th. We have a little bit more information as far as this event is concerned. LSU Alabama's game was put out to be 2:30. I still think there's a small chance that if we beat Auburn, when we beat Auburn, that they might flex that game to a little bit later, but it is a CBS game, so I think they might be locked into that 2:30. So we may be pushing the time start at 12. You want to talk anything more? Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Civic Saver.
All right, guys. So I was actually at an event last night called Real Men Wear Pink. Fun event that Diane put on at Kelvin's. I think I secured actually 2 more table sponsors at the event last night. So listen, if you have not purchased your tickets yet, we only have 20 tables. I think we're at 19 right now, if I get verification on those 2. So if you want a table and you haven't seen about one yet, you need to see about it as soon as possible. If you want to buy just individual tickets at $35 a ticket, Robert has some tickets that he'll have in his office, and I have tickets in my office also. That being said, moving the event up because of the LSU game, I'm going to call out, and we'll probably put out a sign-up sheet in the next couple of weeks, but I'm going to call out, we're also looking for help, for volunteers to help work that day, okay? So basically the car show is probably, or the whole event is probably going to start at about 1 o'clock. We'll get an exact time once we figure out if they move it or not. But let's figure on 12:30, 1 o'clock as of right now. So I'm going to need 3 people from 1 to 6 to help check in all the cars that's coming in, get them registered. I'm also going to need 3 people to help park cars for the car show. All right. Then I have 3 different shifts for the door, actually inside the hall, which is in the air condition. So I have a 5 to 7:30 shift, 7:30 to 10, and 10 to 12. I need 3 people in each one of those slots. We have some beer booth slots. We put 2 people in the beer booth. So I have a 5 to 7:30, 7:30 to 10, and 10 to 12. And we have a cook-off team that we're going to need to help run the cook-off stuff. That's going to be 4 people, and that shift is from 2 to 5. Anybody interested in volunteering for one of these shifts, see me after. I'll jot your name down. If not, we'll send out a sign-up sheet. If not next week, definitely the following week, because I think we're going to be off-site next week. So it'll probably be the following week. But I just want to kind of give y'all some November 9th. All right? Good.
Thank you, Rob. So next thing up right now, this Friday is a deadline for the district home office to consider moving their current office, which is in Lafayette, if I'm not mistaken. They're looking for anyone who wants to donate a space or is considering donating a space for their home office. Right now, they're considering moving to Baton Rouge, and I think half the crew doesn't want to move, some of them do. So they're opening up to any other opportunities as far as hosting a district home office. Like I said, right now it's in Lafayette. They're considering moving to Baton Rouge. Do you want to elaborate on this topic, or?
Yeah, I can. They're not considering moving. They're evaluating the opportunity to move. It's been offered by the Baton Rouge Rotary Club that they have an office space, a small 10 by 10 roughly office that they're going to make available to us if we so choose to move. The decision is going to be made by all of the clubs within the district. Whether or not there's enough support to move or not, I'm really doubtful that there is, but it's going to be offered at the mid-year assembly. We're evaluating that decision. Is there going to be any net savings to the district once we move? That's questionable. You know, when you put the pencil to it, the people that are serving the district are all pretty much west of the Chapalaya Basin, so you're going to increase their expense of going to a meeting and crossing that basin each time there's a meeting. There's a lot of resistance to that. So there's pros and there's cons. Free is always not necessarily the best. Okay? And that's where we are right now.
But I think basically what's happening is they're looking for any other opportunity. If they're going to discuss the possibility of a move to Baton Rouge, they're looking to see if anybody else has an opportunity also. That way, whenever they review it at mid-district assembly, mid-year assembly, whatever it is, they'll have everything out on the table so they can discuss Baton Rouge and any other office opportunity that could be available.
Again, the deadline is this Friday, so if you have something like that, you can email me. I'll get it to the district office.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we own the place, or is it rented?
It's ready.
We're renting from the scouts.
Boy Scout.
From the Bar Scout? Yes.
Is it going sour, or what's the problem?
No, there's no problem.
No issue at all.
It's
It was just
$500 a month.
It was presented by another club to host the district office somewhere else. So they're opening up to all clubs to see if there's any other potential availability to house the district. But as of right now, there's no issue. Go ahead.
Why would 3/4 of the district want to have to cross I-10 to get to a meeting in Baton Rouge?
All of those sentiments have been shared, and that's what they're bringing up. But the fact that one club has presented an opportunity, they're opening it up to all clubs to present an opportunity and address the membership as such. But we agree. Any other? Yes, sir.
Rotary has come up with an alternative to the Choices program. The Choices program being that program where Rotarians and others do a 1-hour presentation to 7th and 8th grade students to open their eyes and make them realize that the future, their future, depends on the choices that they make. Whether to study and do their homework, whether to be good or be bad, and whether to graduate from high school or not. So Deborah and I are heading up that committee for our club, and I know several of you have signed up to help. If we could, after this meeting, 5 minutes or less, kind of huddle up in the corner here. I need to get a little organization, and it just occurred to me, I need to do it. And we need to do it. So if we can just meet for a little while, anybody that's interested, you're all welcome.
Appreciate that, Judge. And that's called the Get Real program. We touched on it a couple of times at previous meetings, so we want to get that ball rolling. Appreciate it, Judge. Next meeting will be held at LeBlanc Elementary. We will be receiving an update on the French immersion program and actually see firsthand of what's going on with that program. At tonight's board meeting, if you can't make next week's meeting, we will be getting an update from Madeline on the French immersion. She's going to give us a program on that, about a 30-minute or so program. So if you can't make next week's, come to the board meeting tonight. It will be hosted at the school board office, the curriculum office to the right of the 3-story building. All right. So without further ado, Mr. John will have you come introduce the program.
Today we have Mr. Whitney Oshate. Whitney is a native of Abbeville, finished high school at Dominican Catholic in 1969, LSU Physical Therapy School in 1974. Whit started his career as a staff physical therapist at Good Samaritan Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky for 5 years. Whit met his wife, Deborah, who was a student at the University of Kentucky. They were married and returned to Abbeville and started his private physical therapy practice in 1979. Whit just retired. Congratulations, Whit, on your retirement. He just retired after serving Vermilion Parish for 40 years. Whitney and Deborah have 2 children, Jennifer and Mickey, and 2 grandchildren. Whit has been an active member of the Abbeville Rotary Club since 1989, has served as club treasurer, club president in 1996-97, and district governor, district youth exchange chairman. Whit does not profess to be an authority on polio. However, his lifelong experience after his mother, June Romero Oshate, contracted polio in 1952 has given Whit unique understanding of the disease's devastating effects. Whit is Whit. He's proud to be called a Rotarian and to be a part in eradicating this devastating disease. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Well, I'll be the first to admit I'm not an expert on polio, or as some people call it, poliomyelitis. I've never seen a case in my entire career, 45-year career, that was related directly to the effects of polio. However, I can tell you a story about a guy I had about 10 years ago in my clinic here in Abbeville. And he had a polio leg. It affected his spinal cord, and it affected just one leg. Well, he learned how to walk. He had no muscle power in his left leg. So he learned how to walk by hyperextending his left knee. And over all the years of walking with a hyperextended left knee, he developed severe degenerative arthritis in his right knee, and I took care of him for a total knee replacement. So, but I've never taken care of anyone directly with the effects of polio. There's no cure for polio. There's only prevention, and that's where Rotarians come in. Polio is a virus that destroys the motor nerve cells in the spinal column. Specifically, it's the anterior horn cells in the spinal cord. The virus affects the motor nerves that go to the muscles. We have nerves in our body that carry sensory information about hot and cold, position sense. But the virus attacks the anterior horn cells that their job is to conduct electric current from the brain down through the spinal cord into our muscles. So when someone is affected by polio, it affects their muscles. Polio can cause permanent paralysis. It can cause breathing problems and even death. And when people died from polio, it usually affected the phrenic nerve, which is the nerve that goes to the breathing apparatus, the diaphragm. And probably if you read any articles about polio, you've heard of patients that had polio that went in an iron lung way back in the epidemic years. My mother was in an iron lung for about 6 months after she contracted polio. And that's because her diaphragm was affected, but fortunately, that part resolved. Polio is easily prevented by vaccine injection. A tablet can be given by mouth in the weakened state of the virus. So if someone is detected to have polio, they may get an injection, and then they may have a follow-up with a tablet to to finish killing off the disease. The World Health Organization recommends that all children be vaccinated for polio. The vaccine was developed in the early 50s by an American physician named Thomas Salk, thus the Salk vaccine, if you've heard of that before. Cases of polio peaked in the U.S. in 1952 with 57,623 cases reported. Most people will not have visible symptoms. It might last for 2 days and then it'll go away spontaneously. 1 out of every 200 people that contracted polio ended up with paralysis. Polio virus is highly contagious, and it's usually spread through contaminated food or water. Polio has been eliminated in the United States since 1979. As early as 1916, there were polio epidemics each year. In the early 50s, before the vaccine was created, they had outbreaks of greater than 15,000 people a year in the United States. And this is where Rotarians come in. Polio still exists, and as Robert said, in 2 countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And you've heard of Polio Plus. So what's Polio Plus? Polio Plus uses the infrastructure that Rotarians have created to give the vaccine. For example, the personnel, the supply lines, the communication in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. So the plus represents things that Rotarians do to prevent the spread of the virus. For example, providing clean water so that people don't get contaminated water. Safe food, waste disposal, and other diseases like malaria, education. This is what Rotarians provide in the eradication of this dreaded disease. There's a great article in this month's October issue of the Rotarian that's entitled The Plus in Polio Plus. So basically it explains how Rotarians are doing so much more than just vaccination. Polio in World War II, ironically, was the 2 main factors that created the necessity for my profession, for physical therapy. Because people, for example, people that, with all the injuries and amputations in World War II, the doctors were doing their thing, the nurses were doing their thing, giving medicines and dressing wounds, and they needed another person, another healthcare person. And so physical therapy came out of that, out of injuries from World War II and the polio epidemic. They needed a person to take care of these people. They needed a person to take care of, to show them how to walk again, to learn how to do things with what was left after the damage from polio or amputation or whatever the injury was. And at this time, I'd like to thank all Rotarians, since y'all all know I'm retired now, I'd like to thank all Rotarians and their families who patronized my service over the years, over the past 40 years in Abbeville and Kaplan. So I thank you very much for that. Most notably, there was a president of the United States that had polio. Does anybody know who that was? FDR. So if you've ever seen FDR on film, you'll see that most of the time he's sitting down. But he made an effort to stand up in a lot of cases, and he didn't need any pity. He didn't need to show that he was handicapped, if you will. So he had the ability to stand up, and oftentimes they propped him up, or he had some braces to be able to stand up and deliver a speech. So I'll open up the floor to any questions if anybody has any questions.
On your last,
Yes.
on the last item, did the general public know that he was
don't think they did.
Because
He
all
didn't.
some of the years when I was a young boy, I hear about him, and they'd never talk about him.
I don't think the general public knew, and he didn't want them to know.
I don't know.
He disguised it very well. Bernard?
I think I mentioned this when I came back. Several years ago, I went to San Diego, and I went to the Jonas Salk Institute. And the story about Jonas Salk, the discoverer of the polio vaccine, is that he donated. He never made a penny off of the polio vaccine. Can you imagine that today? That's an aside. But he became so famous, he's a magnet for research money. And so he built this beautiful institute just for medical and scientific research on the hills right above the Pacific Ocean, right outside of San Diego. And it is one of the most fascinating places I've ever been. It looks like if you watch a Big Bang Theory, and college kids, medical researchers from all over the world go there. And it looks like they got 500, Sheldons walking around, and the other guys from the Big Bang Theory. But it's an amazing place. Now, he's dead now, but the Institute's still going strong, and it's still a magnet for research money.
Thank you, Bino. On a personal note, my mother contracted polio on July the 4th, 1952. I was born in October of 51, so I was 6 months old when she contracted polio. She told me before she passed away, when I was old enough to understand some things, the day she got polio, she just woke up with a severe headache, and she had just muscle pain all over, just aching all over, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and sweating, and she knew something was up. She called her sister. Her sister came over, and finally she got to the hospital, and then she ended up at Big Charity Hospital in New Orleans for a year. Ironically, when I was in therapy school, we went to Big Charity to see some cases, and I toured the polio ward, and they had all these warm baths, and that wasn't to recover, that was to help manage the pain from polio, to put them in the warm baths, and to exercise the parts of their body that was left. Maybe locally, I don't know who remembers Bobby Nerver. Bobby Nerver was a victim of polio, aside from my mom. That's the only two people I knew in Abbeville. Judge?
Cheryl Moe, Jeffrey Moe's daughter, also.
Okay.
She's the mother.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yes.
Before the Salk vaccine, wasn't there a problem with Dr. Oshner in New Orleans where his grandkids or I read a report one time about that. They have John, contract.
So today you're hearing some negatives about vaccinations. So what's some things that we can say to make sure that this remains a positive thing?
Yeah, I'd say it's fake news.
What's that?
Fake news.
Fake news, okay. Yeah, so I mean, it's unfortunate that it's out there about that, when it's about to eradicate a total disease.
Right.
And yet they worry about some side effects.
I'll speak on that just for a second. When I went to Penn's training, they had a doctor there that spoke on that very thing. Because somebody questioned what was going on in America about anti-vaxxers. And he said that if someone that had polio came to America, it would take us over 20 years or so to eradicate it just from America, because that's how fast it would spread, because of our population. So you have to understand that it's left in these two countries, and it's not spreading, enormously, because of, you're talking about small villages, so they're able to contain it when someone has, been contacted with polio. So if you would put it in a larger population of Europe, it would spread like wildfire, and we'll have, to go back to all these 20 years, 30 years of vaccinations, we'll have to start over again. So that's why it's very important, and that's why Rotary will not take on another role until we finish this, because it is not finished until the very last country is done for 3 years, and then we can move on to something else. That's why it's very, very important. If efforts, it's still very difficult to get into villages and and to give out the vaccine. If you imagine most of the people are of European descent or American descent that's coming out there to get the vaccinations, and they're just not very receptive to that.
Talking about local people with polio, I had a classmate who was a little older than me, but we went to school for 12 years, and right after the 40 flood, he contracted polio, and he could never walk. His arms were strong. He'd sit down, we'd throw the baseball with him. He became a member of my class, one of the 8 boys in my class that went from first to...
What was his name then?
Bobby Abbeville. He couldn't go to UL when we went. We graduated together because they had no handicap access, so he had to go to LSU. And so he finished at LSU as a honor, and he ended up in Rain. He was the city administrator there forever, and he retired not too long ago. I'm still in touch with him, but he was another one from the main parish.
I got to spend a whole the last week with a friend who's in the radio business. He goes around the world setting up radio towers for small community broadcasting. His last gig, as he puts it, was in Cameroon. Cameroon borders Nigeria. And in visiting with the people we were with, and he's not a Rotarian, we began talking about polio plus and how Bill Gates and with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in conjunction with the Rotary Club, was trying to eradicate polio. Bill and Melinda Gates, we love them, but they're Johnny come lately, and we couldn't do it all without them. But you know, the credit really goes to Rotary. But what he was telling me is, in Cameroon, they have Boko Haram, not Boko Haram, that terrorist group. Okay? He says the name, literally translated, means no Western. Anyway, it means that no Western education for women. Okay, they want to hold women down. They want to keep them in their place. In fact, so he said, you know, one of the things that these radio stations do is broadcast the truth. And part of the problem they were having, because Cameroon was only recently taken off the list, part of the problem they were having was that Boko Haram, however you pronounce it, can't seem to get it out, was they were attacking and killing the nurses and medical groups that were going in to vaccinate these people, okay? They were also spreading the rumors that, no, you don't want them to vaccinate you because it's something else. It's not going to protect you from polio. And they were telling them that, you know, that nurses were spies, they were going to do terrible things, so people were afraid to bring their children. And that was one of the things that this radio station was going to try to broadcast, was the truth about polio plus as well as other things. So the reason that we haven't gotten rid of polio in Pakistan. It is because of such groups like this. They're against it. And if you think, okay, why are they against it? I mean, I didn't know this, Robert, until you said, if one person with polio comes to the U.S., it's like all our kids got to get vaccinated again. 9/11 was nothing.
Thank you, Judge.
This is really important.
Thank you, Judge. In closing, I'd like to say from a personal experience that this is a life-changing disease, and I'm very proud to be part of the Eradicate Polio movement as a Rotarian. Thank you very much.
hopeful that Whitgo is going to pull a few things, but also I want to let you know from our efforts with the Paint the Pinky to date, we will vaccinate 325 children, just from our efforts this last couple of weeks. So I appreciate it. What's the numbers here? Lottery number is 2264.
2264, that's me.
All right, come on down.
No, right before. It's right before.
And a free lunch goes to Mason. It's here. No. No winner today. Burton Gidry. Got your ID on it. It does. It gets fun.
You get the money, boy.